3 weeks ago with some material I put together with a debate I had with a fellow by the name of P.D. Ballard. He was from Vine, Oklahoma. And a little bit of background on how that came about. It was sort of interesting. Fred House, who has now passed away, him and his wife Joy, are living in Fulton, Mississippi, which is my daddy's hometown. But he grew up in Smith County up there where we were preaching in Rome. He grew up at Plunkett's Creek Missionary Baptist Church. And all of his family stayed with the Plunkett's Creek Missionary Baptist Church, except Fred obeyed the gospel through the influence of his good wife, Joy. And so he became a gospel preacher, preached for years at Alamo, where Derek's at. That's where he preached years ago. But anyhow, him and his wife lived in Fulton and had retired. He was about 80. And his next door neighbor ate out of his garden, but she had a boy that was mean. And he ended up being in the house, robbing them. And Joy first went in and surprised him. He killed her with a knife and then killed Fred, too. And so it was a travesty. But anyhow, back before that terrible thing happened, he was at a funeral visiting the family up in Smith County at a funeral, and there was his brother, who's still a missionary Baptist preacher, who confronted him. And they started arguing back and forth at the funeral home. And so finally Fred said, "Why, won't we just have a debate, William? We'll just settle this once and for all. We'll just have a debate." And he said, "Well, you're not going to debate me." And he said, and Fred said, well, this Fred will," pointed to me. He'll debate you. And so sure enough, we signed a proposition, but I never did get it back from him. And about a month later, I got a signed proposition from Oklahoma from this fella named P.D. Ballard. Come to find out, and I didn't know this until the day of the debate, he had had 37 debates, and he had had 5 debates with our brethren. He had backed out of a debate with Brother Woods, and then he claimed when I was debating him that Brother Woods wouldn't have anything to do with him because he was so brilliant, which was a joke. And we still have the videos here if you'd like to watch that debate. Me, about 270 pounds, and with the truth, and him not with the truth. But that's these materials that we're seeing here, I had them on the overhead. And that was a job, I'll just tell you. So I got invited at a lectureship one time to go about and explain what I did in that debate and to put the material on PowerPoint so that it'd be available for anybody that needed from then on. And so all this material is available for anybody and everybody that wants it. And what we made our way to in this particular study, as we made it through last week, was trying to show how suspect the sources are that we oftentimes use as supposed authorities about various matters. And this was straight out of a Bible program that you can find, and hopefully if you got it, then you realize that just because it's online and just because the fellow that put it together may have a DD or a PDA or a JKY, who knows what he's got after his name, that don't mean that what he's saying is true. And we use this example, and this was based on, of course, the use of the word ace. Some people call it ice. That's translated unto or for in Acts chapter 2 at verse 38. And I was just showing how on this particular matter, the just plain old dishonesty of people when it comes to matters like this. A person that would do things like this in the banking world would be in jail. But when it comes to spiritual matters, you can do whatever you want to, and it seems to be fine and dandy. And here was the illustration that he used here. Here was his explanation to get away from what we established at the very beginning, that water baptism is essential to salvation. Not water baptism by itself, but water baptism is the culminating act of primary gospel obedience that takes a person from being lost to being saved. Takes them from the world to in Christ, where all spiritual blessings are found. And just notice this little example he used.